All right. Good evening, everyone. Apologies, I am a couple of minutes late. Um, had to set up a few things, and things weren't playing ball. But anyway, thank you so much for joining me this evening. We're going to do a finance clinic. So what that essentially means is that you get to ask any burning questions that you might have, and I will try to be as helpful as possible when it comes to any answers I can provide, some context, some, I guess, guidance that I can provide, given everything that's happened. So last week we saw the Bank of England base rate stay at 5.25%. I did do a live midweek, which I was in a completely different location. So looking back over the stream, the picture quality was not this quality. Actually, it was actually pretty poor, but that was because I was in a completely different town. And yeah, the Wi-Fi wasn't that great, so apologies. So I'm more than happy to go over maybe some of those points again, just to give people more clarity. But I'm also open to obviously take your questions on that. I think there were a couple of things that came through in the commentary midweek around the interest rates, the Bank of England base rate specifically, and that was the fact that uh, we are heading for higher interest rates for much, much longer. What that basically means is that people are still, for some reason, hoping that we're going to get interest rates down to, 1.5%, 2%, 3% max. That's not going to be happening anytime soon. So I think it's really, really important just to note that, particularly for first time buyers, people who may be hanging on, property purchase, postponing those, procrastinating a little bit. Um, it's important not to hang your hat on the fact that you think this is going to happen. Andrew Bailey actually made a point to reiterate that interest rates are going to remain higher for much, much longer. So something that's worthwhile just mentioning, and something that's important for us to know moving forward. I mean, we're now in November, so this is what, the 5th of November today. My mortgage went up from 1.49 to 4.75 this week. So a lot of these rate rises are starting to work through the system. They're going to be landing in people's pockets, their bank accounts right now. And so this is where it starts to get real. All of this was hypothetical. It was, it was down the road a few months. Now it is starting to hit home. And more homes, more households are going to be hit with the fact that interest rates have gone up. The good news from this week is the fact that because interest rates has been kept at 5.25%, tracker mortgages won't be going up. Fixed rate mortgages really shouldn't be going up. If anything, fixed rate mortgages, if the providers are trying to drum up a little bit of competition, and fixed rate mortgages have kind of dropped over the past 2 to 3 weeks, certainly the last month, then maybe, just maybe, we will see a reduction in fixed rate mortgages potentially, depending on how the lenders are feeling and how much money they have in their books that they need to get rid of. So there's good news there. Savings accounts probably won't be seeing any movements at all with savings accounts whatsoever, because unfortunately, all of the savings providers need to have uh, a reason to increase their interest rates. And a flat Bank of England base rate that didn't move doesn't give them any reason or any incentive to increase their savings rates. Just looking at the picture right here. Bear me 1 second. Just see if I can get this straight. Is that straight? That feels like it's a little bit more straight. Okay, there we go. Um, they have no incentive at all. So we're unlikely to see interest rates on savings accounts move as a result of that. But that's where we are. I'm just going to listen, I'm so behind. I haven't done my call to actions here in the chat. So I'm just going to do this, save this, and I'm going to pop this on screen right now. So pop your questions in the chat and I will get round to them. Let's have a look and see what we've got in there already. I did see this a little bit earlier. Food Dwellers asking me, how do I feel about Man United's performance this season? It's been frustrating to say the least, mate. It's an absolute mess. It really, really is. It's just it's an absolute disaster. I don't think it's the right time to. I don't think it's the right thing to do if we sack Eric Ten Hag. Um, if you look at the forward line, what there's one goal across the four players in the forward line this entire season so far. I mean, it's absolutely disgraceful. But I don't think that it's Ten Hag's problem necessarily. I don't know what's going on there. I just don't. But at the same time, we're caught in this cycle, aren't we? Done this so many times before. If we sack him, get a new manager in, yeah, we'll get a first season bounce. Then it will probably just go to pot like it always does. So I think some calm is needed. And I think that we need to kind of be, I guess we need to start afresh. We need to change the mentality. We need to break that cycle, is what I think. So I think stick with him for the time being. If Sir Jim Ratcliffe does come in and this deal gets ratified, he's going to take control of the sporting side of the business and maybe have some decisions to make around players and transfers, then that may make a difference. But I don't think sacking a manager right now is even the right thing to do. The question is, who are they going to go get? It's not as though there are world-class football managers just readily available that you think would actually fit the profile for United. You know, I think the club itself is just rotten, and I don't think it's down to the manager. There's just so much wrong with that club. The players, get rid of some of the players. They should have that written into those contracts. Like it makes zero sense. But there you go. South London, no, you're not. You're not late. Hey mate, hi, how you doing? Right, okay, P. When you get tax refunding, you don't claim it. What happens to your money? Does tax refund have an expiry date? Can the government take it back if you don't claim it at a specific period of time? Good question, mate. If you, I don't know if it expires or not, mate. I mean, if you've got a tax refund because you pay too much tax and you're aware of it, I'm sure there's a cut-off period, but I don't know the answer to that question, mate. You probably need an accountant to answer that question for you. But because I do self-assessment every year, I will typically know if I've overpaid any tax. So the rebate comes through pretty quickly. But I do self-assessments. If you're in an employed one, you have an inkling, you still need to apply. But I don't know whether they have a cut-off date. I would like to think that they don't, but at the same time, a HMRC, so they probably do. But you need an accountant for that, mate. I couldn't answer you confidently with that. Michael, how you doing? Could be worse. Could be a Chelsea fan. Mate, I don't know about that. I really don't know about that. I mean, it's fascinating, isn't it? I mean, if I look at this Premier League table, are Tottenham still top? I would love Tottenham to win. I would love Tottenham to win. Better than Arsenal winning. Definitely better than Man City winning. I would love them to win. And the job that Postecoglou's done. I mean, Madison is like the signing of the season so far, isn't he? He's been amazing for the team, for that team. But yeah, we'll see what happens, mate. But yeah, Chelsea are in a, I don't know. United and Chelsea, are they not kind of like, who's above who in the league? Actually, hang on a second. Let's have a look at this. Who's above who in the league? Because I'm sure, are we above Chelsea? Are we above Chelsea? Let's have a look at this. 1 second. Standings. We're 8th. And Chelsea, oh my God, Chelsea's 13th. Okay, mate. Yeah. All right. Yeah, you're definitely worse off. You're definitely worse off. I'll take that. I'll take that for sure. I'll also take that as some encouragement too. Pete, hit the like button as soon as you come in. God bless you. Thank you very much. If you haven't already hit the like button, it would be amazing if you could. Just means that the YouTube algorithm will recommend this video to someone else who might ask a question that they would, well, might get benefit from a question that you ask that they also have on their mind. So please do smash the like button. It only takes a second to do so, but it will be much, much appreciated. Richard, how you doing? Spitzel Pete. Michael's saying here, yes, by a lot. They're in relegation battle. Easy. I don't know, mate. I think you've got enough there. There's no way that you won't end up, back end of the season in that position. There's just no way. Okay, here's a question for you though, Mike. Let me know. Do you get rid of Poch? What happens? What do you do? What do you do right now? Because it's a really, really sticky situation to be in. What do you do? Get rid of Poch? What do you think about fire movement, 4% raw and geo arbitrage? Pound strength still allows a good life abroad. Personally, I think I don't like and don't subscribe to the fire thing. I know plenty of people do. Plenty of people in that community get extremely passionate about the fact that people either disapprove or criticize that philosophy. Um, I just don't. I don't buy into it. It's a great ideal to thrive for, but I just feel like that movement kind of it misses a lot of the pragmatic stuff. Um, yeah, invest as early as possible. I mean, it's not just about the 4% rule. Invest as early as possible is really, really important. I don't necessarily agree with the side of the movement that will talk about the fact that you should be as frugal as possible. Well, you can if you want to be, but I just think, you know, that doesn't really give you the balance that you basically need. And I just think for that, from a financial planning point of view, the 4% rule is great. But what happens when you have high inflation, which is past the 4% rule? Then what? So people that I have spoken to within that community tend to use that as this is the foolproof method, the only thing that you need. And I would argue that you still need some professional input in actually understanding how that's actually going to work. The 4% rule is great, but it doesn't account for higher than normal inflation. You can then end up in the world of pound cost ravaging, which is really, really, really important to address. So I don't buy into the actual narrative of it, but it is a great idea. It is a really, really good, solid idea. But each to their own. That's just me. It does just because I disagree with it or I don't necessarily follow it doesn't mean that someone else shouldn't. You've got to pick your own battles and pick your own tea, right? And for me, it's definitely not my cup of tea as an ideology or a way of approaching things. What's the best way to contact you for some help? Instagram is going to be the best way to do that, Lee. So if you message me on Instagram, I will come back to you there. Um, if I don't come back immediately, it's because I have a lot of stuff in the inbox at the moment. So I try and work through. I get a lot of people asking me to do stuff for free for charity, which is fine, but I allocate one a month. So I'm doing one this week. I'm speaking at the West London College this week. That's not paid. So I try to allocate one thing a month. So depending on how the inquiries basically come in, I'll respond to them as I get to them. It will take me a few days, I would imagine, to get back to you, but I will get back to you during the week. So message me on it. Hi, Peter. I'm planning to rent out the flat I currently live in, or live in 2 or so. I was thinking in waiting to refurbish it when I start that, as it will be the most, or it will be the most of tax. Uh, okay, so you're trying to renovate to get a tax deductible. Only if you're doing this via business. If you're doing it in your personal taxes, no. If you're doing it via business, then yes. If you've got a business entity around it, yes. The cost of the refurbishment will be a tax deductible against your corporation tax. But if you're doing this as a private individual, I can't see where you would have a tax deductible or the ability to reduce your tax because of the refurbishment costs. So if you've got a limited company, then yeah, 100%. If not, probably not. No, that's my understanding anyway. If I contribute to a SIPP from my salary in addition to company pension, do I still need to pay NI on the contribution or contributed portions? Yes. Okay, a couple of things here. Why are you contributing to a SIPP and a workplace pension? Don't forget, I mean, there are reasons and circumstances where you would do it, but I just want to know, are you clear on why you're doing both of those two things separately? Because I think the first port of call between um, contributing into workplace pension and a SIPP will be, have you made sure that your company doesn't match, first and foremost? If you have, then that's fine. If you haven't, I would argue that you're probably going to get more bang for your buck if your company matches and you do that instead. Because the matching mechanism basically means that if you up your contributions from say 5% to 10%, and they add in additional, 7% on top, it's free money at the end of the day. So if you haven't done that, I suggest maybe doing that. If you have, then that's fine. With a SIP, will you have to have national contributions into your? I'm just trying to think of how I've actually done it in the past. I've always done it via my workplace, and I've solely done it in my workplace. And I've currently got my auto enrollment pension going via my business right now, which has all the national insurance contributions going in as well as a cost to the business. You know what? I cannot answer that directly right now without having to go look at it, to be honest, mate. I'll have to go look at this to be able to give you a confident answer on this, because I cannot remember whether you would still need to make your NI contributions on the SIP contributions to your pension, because it's coming out of your personal, it's coming out of your income after you've already paid tax. So you've already paid national insurance contributions at source if you're doing it via your actual income. So on that, with that logic, there will be no national insurance contributions going into your SIP because you're paying it from your income. So part of me says no, actually you wouldn't have to, but I need to double check it, because in the back of my head I feel like there's just something else that's there. Yeah, message me on IG and I'll just do some digging. But my initial thought process, thinking through how it would actually work, is no, because you would have paid national insurance contributions via your salary already. Yeah, okay. Not going to sack Poch. That's good. I feel exactly the same way about Ten Hag, mate. What's the best way to invest for teenage children, early teens, like 13 and 14? Junior ISA, probably the first port you can go into, but just bear in mind, with them being 13 and 14, you've got 5 and 4 years for each of them to be able to take ownership of the money that you're going to save for them. But with the junior ISA, you've got £9,000 as the allowance per year. So if you're able to put in the max, not just you, by the way, uncles, aunts, family members, cousins, whoever, because anyone can contribute into a junior ISA for kids. That will be a good way, but they will take ownership of the money when they're age 18. You can do things like junior pensions and stuff, but they won't be able to access that money till way later. So really, we have to circle back and think about what you're looking to save for, or what you're looking to invest for. Are you looking to invest so that they can have a deposit for a property? You're looking to invest so that they can have a comfortable retirement, university fees? What exactly for? Do you want to do it in their name, or do you want to be the custodian where you're still overlooking and overseeing things? Oftentimes, it's better to have it in a segregated account, especially if it's for children, because it just means that you've got a tag on that account. So when things change, as things inevitably will, you'll be conscious that obviously it's money for the kids that you're basically taking out. But those are two things. But with junior ISAs, junior ISA is the one that they can access, but they will take ownership of it in 5 and 4 years' time. So worthwhile just bearing that in mind. Hi, Pete. Moved to the UK recently. What would you recommend reading list to understand financial system here in the UK? I can't think of any books that talk about the financial system which is UK specific. Not that are UK specific. Dio. So I'm guessing you're Nigerian as well. Yeah. So I can't think of any books specifically that talk about the financial UK system, or the UK's financial system specifically. There isn't one that I know of that I've come across. It depends on what you need to know and what you want to know exactly. Because, yeah, what do you want to know exactly? Because the financial system is very, very broad. the question is very, very broad here, and the context of what the answer will be, if you're looking at the UK financial system, it's very, very broad in terms of how banks operate, investments operate, insurance and things like that operate, and the subsidiaries to all of these. It's quite a big puzzle that you're trying to get a grasp on. So, what sector, what part of the UK financial system do you want to understand? Because what they do in the retail space, yes, there's some correlation to the business space, but there are nuances in the business space that don't apply to the retail and vice versa, right? So what exactly do you need to know? And there isn't a book that I know of. So how I know all of this, I did qualifications. I've still got my books in here, and that talks through the UK financial system for people qualifications, because in my road to be qualified as a financial advisor, understanding how the UK system actually works is pivotal to that, right? But I picked up that piece of work because I wanted to qualify as a financial advisor. It was part of my education. There isn't a financial book that I know of that does specifically that. If you message down below and just say, look, you want to understand this thing specifically, then maybe I can provide a little bit more more context and a little bit more information. But yeah, let me know what is it exactly that you want to know. What part of the system do you want to know? Oh, good man. You've already ordered the book. Thank you very much, mate. Thank you. Right. So Ame's just saying here, you were going to rent it out. So let me just go back up quickly. Let me just find your previous. To rent out the flat, I'm currently living in 2 years or so. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So you're living in it right now. You want to rent it out. Yeah. The only way you're going to be able to to be able to reduce any tax that you might have to pay is if you had this if a company owned the flat, or you put it through a business of some kind. The business would have to own the asset in order for you to spend money on it and get some kind of tax rebate. It won't work under personal in personal finance, in the constraints of your own personal finances, for what I understand. So good evening. I have a few debts I'm tackling at the moment. In your opinion, should I concentrate on the debt that is biggest outgoing, not necessarily the largest, first? Or should I attack the smallest one first, then go from there to the next largest? Okay, really, really good question. So there are arguments to do both. Okay, let's start with this latter one where you attack the smaller one before attacking the largest one. Now, the reason why a lot of people will advocate that you start with the smallest one first is because, from a behavioral psychology point of view, you get that immediate boost of confidence in the fact that you've tackled something small, you've got rid of it, and you can take that momentum into others, right? So you then start to build. You get the beginning inertia that builds into that snowball effect. Okay, it would definitely give you a morale boost, 100% for sure. There is an argument to start at the other end. So start with the largest debt, or the debt that's costing you the most first. Because again, what you're trying to do, if you think about what debt is a drain on your resources, on your income, right? So by targeting the highest debt or the highest interest rate, whichever one is costing you the most monthly, that immediately puts you on the path to paying down that debt a lot sooner, and therefore being able to retain more of your income a lot sooner than if you started at the other end. Starting at the top end, though, from a psychological point of view, when you think about behavioral psychology here, and that's a huge thing when it comes to finances, it's that initial, it's daunting, and you're having to make a really big commitment up front. And so you've got to have the mindset, you've got to have you've got to be in the right frame of mind to be able to make that commitment. And more importantly, you have to then also have the mechanisms, practical things in place to ensure that you make it as painless as possible for yourself. So when I say things like, I mean things like automation. If it's a credit card, for example, don't wait until the statement comes out, then you have to physically manually pay it. No, set up a standing order the amount you agree goes to the credit card on payday at the earliest convenience past payday, because you might notice it the first 1, 2, maybe even 3 months, but I promise you, after about 3 months, you'll start to get into autopilot. And just being clear as well on how long it's going to take you, and understand that it is going to take a period of time, and tracking your progress in this is really important, because again, from a psychological point of view, if you're able to track and you're able to tick off and say, right, month 1 is done, but if it's going to take you a year, you'll be very, very quickly at month 6. And the benefit that you'll get, the confidence boost that you'll get at month 6, month 7, month 8, particularly as you get into month 9 and 10, that's going to be really, really huge for you. And that in itself is habit forming, because the most important thing is, after you paid off the debt, hopefully, your brain will have rewired and your thinking would have rewired at that point to know, okay, so this amount that I've allocated to the debt, I didn't actually need that to survive per se per month, because you would have been able to make ends meet either way during that period of time, during that 12-month period. And at the end of the 12-month period, you can then reevaluate and say, okay, right, so I've now got this sum of money that was going towards this card every single month. Where do I want to allocate that money to moving forward? That's how you start to build positive habits that give you the compounding effect that help you build for the future. Now, for many people, I've definitely coached people, and they will come to the end of that plan, and they'll say, like, I'm going to take half of it back so that I can maybe enjoy things that I've sacrificed, which is completely fine. But I always encourage people to take an element of that money. It doesn't matter how small or how big. Take an element of that money and put that towards something tangible for the future. So again, in my book, I talk about, the budgeting structure, the 3 buckets: essential, non-essential, other. Look at that, the money that you have, you've been putting on that card, take a portion of it, put it into the other pot, because that's either where you're going to start investing from. You can start to build an emergency from that pot. You can go towards any long-term goals that you might actually have. So there are merits for doing either or. It depends on your personality, though, really. And this is where I've got a debt section in my book, because I struggled with debt for 15 years, right? So I can talk about this confidently. I think you need to look at your circumstances specifically. If this is a debt that is causing you quite a bit of anxiety, then both parts have merits. You can start on either or, but what is going to work from a practical point of view for you, given everything else that you have going on? So it's really, really important that you sit down, have a look at your finances, and just have a look at, right, okay, so if you took route A, where you went with the smallest first and paid that down, what does it look like from a financial point of view? If you went route B, where you're looking at the highest or the most expensive debt first, what does that look like? Work backwards then the plan and say, right, if to go route B is going to take me this long, map it out. If you went route A, which is the smaller amount, also map that out, and then try and extrapolate after a period of time what puts you in the best position possible. This is the kind of stuff that I do with people when I do coaching specifically on this. So if you need help, reach out. But those are just a few things just to get you started right now, that you can just literally just take and have a little think about tomorrow. That would probably it's hard to do a video on this kind of stuff without actually having an example, like a case study specifically, but it might be something I might be able to churn out in a video. So really good question though, mate, and good luck. Hi, Pete. What's your thoughts on where the best place to save for house deposit in addition to a LISA? Okay. I would probably then go and put it in maybe premium bonds, because thinking about the tax-free status, and you'll be able to get pretty easy access to it as well. So premium bonds is probably where I would go after a lifetime ISA or just a general ISA. You want to make sure that you're able to keep your tax-free status on whatever interest or investment returns you're able to get, big or small. You want to keep the tax-free status. So yes, lifetime ISA first, port of call, stocks and shares ISA or cash ISA, or premium bonds, because those will give you the tax-free status. Obviously, interest rates may become um, an equation in this, because I think if you look at the high street right now, some of the best rates are not necessarily in ISA accounts, and obviously with premium bonds, uh, the rate that you get um, isn't actually a rate that is guaranteed. The rate with the national with the NSNI premium bonds goes to fund the prize draw. So you've got to be lucky. There's an air of luck with it. If you get drawn in the prize, you potentially get, whatever range from £25 up to £1 million is what you could win in NSNI premium bonds. So you've got a bit of jeopardy there. But that's where I would go first, personally. Okay, looking to understand how to earn passive income, meet my obligations to to the HMRC, and take advantage of the benefits that are available for a start. Okay, uh, mate, eh, I'm pausing because you've mentioned passive income, and I am not one. I hate the phrase passive income because nothing is ever passive. Passive income means that you don't have to do any work for it. Now you can get passive income if you have quite a lot of money in an investment account where that might be invested for dividends. Yeah, that's passive income because you're not actively having to work for it. But people on the internet, here on YouTube, will tell you that property is passive income. But guess what? You still have to work for it in some way, shape, or form. So I don't like the idea of passive income necessarily. Most of the time, you've got to work for the income that you get. It's just the level of work and the amount of work you have to put into it. I don't talk about passive income on this channel because a lot of the time, if you go Google, YouTube right now, passive income, there's a lot of just twaddle on here, just nonsense on here. People who would make really, really good conversational pieces. Videos will look great. They'll get hundreds of thousands of views because everyone's looking after passive income because everyone doesn't really want to do any work. But they're also going to be selling you something at the end of it as well. So I have a problem with passive income. In terms of meeting your obligations to HMRC, if you're a company, then look, HMRC themselves are actually a very, very good resource. Pick up the phone to them and say, look, this is the situation. I would love to know where and what I need to do, what I need to report to you guys, and they'll just give you all the links, all the resources you can go read up themselves. Take advantage of the benefits that are available for a start. Well, that depends on where you are and what you're doing. If you're starting up a new business, then yes, there might be some grants, there might be funding that you can go for, but then you need to get into business groups specifically for that. And there will be tons of them on LinkedIn, mate. So LinkedIn is your friend right there. I would create a profile on LinkedIn and just post and say, look, you're looking to start up a new business. I'm really, really interested in speaking with people who can actually help with me getting started. Tons of people just will approach you, or you can just do a search on LinkedIn for starting up a business funding, whatever it might be, depending on what benefits you are looking for here. So again, it depends on your circumstances around the things and what you need to do. But I'm guessing that you may be thinking business specifically, and that's where I would start. I would start with HMRC, pick up the phone to them. They're really, really friendly. It can be a long wait time sometimes, but it's a free number. I would suggest ringing like first thing in the morning to get through to someone. But they're very, very helpful, and they will give you all the links and the resources that you need so that you can kind of get an idea of what the obligations are that you have to HMRC in terms of making sure you don't miss things or anything like that. In terms of benefits, if you're talking personal benefits, um, then again, reach out to. So I don't know your circumstances, so I don't want to assume here. So it's hard to say because there are lots of benefits you can uh, potentially be eligible for. And I don't know what they are. But again, if you reach out, if you go onto the gov.uk website, there's tons of stuff in there as well. Passive income, though, mate, I can't say anything about passive income because I don't cover it. A lot of it is a lot of twaddle a lot of the time. But yeah, hopefully that's useful. May not be what you want to hear, but I'm just being honest. I've recently used half of my emergency fund and would like to slowly top it back up. would you say it's better to continue paying 20K into stocks and shares ISA and leave out SIPs until I hit my target? Okay. Sorry, guys. This is a really good question. Okay, so how do you pick between the two? And again, there's going to be a personal view and overlay on this, but I'll tell you what I think. I think the first thing that you should think about is, right, okay, if you sacrifice paying into the SIP, what is the potential impact for you versus reducing how much you're paying into your ISA? Now, I don't know what your contribution levels are, and I don't know whether you're employed or self-employed. I would assume you're self-employed because you've mentioned maybe a SIP, and maybe there isn't a workplace pension here. Okay. So the way I see this is, and we'd need to run the numbers on this, if you were to reduce how much you paid into your SIP, potentially the impact that you would have to incur, because you would have to incur it, will be greater on the SIP than the ISA. Purely because the money in the SIP is going to be invested and you can't touch that until you're 55. And I don't know how old you are currently, but I'm assuming maybe you're in 20s, 30s, right? So you're probably going to have 20 years in your SIP, where if it's invested, that's potential growth that you're reducing the propensity of growth on, right? Because you're not paying the full amount. Whereas with your ISA, the money is easily accessible anyway. So you're not necessarily thinking about this idea that the money's automatically invested and it's going to be invested for 20 years, maybe 10 years into the future because of the wrapper that it's in. And so if you look at it, crunch the numbers, I would say reduce the amount going into the ISAs first and not the SIP. Because remember, yes, it can be attractive on the SIP to pay less in because you don't necessarily see that far into the future, right? It's 55. It's way down there. But that's the reason why I think you maintain what's in the SIP. Because when you think about compound interest over the long term, the greatest reward is going to be in that SIP versus the ISA, which potentially you're probably going to access at any point anyway, at some point in the future. Again, it depends on how you view this. If we were working together coaching, I would have a look at crunching the numbers. So I'd ask you, right, how much is going into each? Where is the SIP actually invested? Let's have a look at some past performance on that SIP. And let's see what that might look like in terms of cash flow modeling into the future. We would look at that from an objective point of view. And then the numbers would definitely tell us which one is better. But right off the top, I think, personally for me, I would carry on with the same amount into the SIP because of that long-term benefit, and maybe reduce what's going into the ISAs currently as a way to catch up on your emergency fund. Cool. All right. So let me just come back here one sec. Where am I? Here we go. Okay. Yes, guys, if you have not already, so there's 53 of us in here at the minute. There's 28 likes. If you get the likes up, that will be amazing. If you can get to like 30, 35, 40, that would be amazing. It just means that YouTube will recommend this to other people who might find some of these questions and the answers useful as well. Well, just learned about premium bonds, bought your book now. Thank you very much, Raja. Appreciate you. Thank you very, very much. Dale's just saying here, I know. I'm guessing that's about the passive income piece. Yeah. Oh, dude. You know what? I'm going to do a video. Look, I've been doing this for 3 years, okay? And let me just be real with you for a second. All right. Let me just be real with you for a second. I've been doing this for 3 years. And obviously, alongside this YouTube channel, I also have my podcast. And you will not believe the kind of pitches I get sent to me for people to appear as guests on my podcast. You would not believe the kind of pitches. And I was thinking about doing a video on this. I haven't decided whether I will or not, but I might. About a month or so ago, I got an email from this agency trying to suggest a person to come on my podcast, and I thoroughly research people who come on my podcast. If anyone's on my podcast, it's either I've spoken to them, I know them, I've watched them, I've spoken to them quite a lot, and I understand what they do. It's very rare that someone who I've never spoken to will ever be on my podcast, purely because the podcast has grown quite well over the past 3 years. Um, it's still in the top 10 when it comes to the finance sector and the audience and the plays that I get, the downloads that I get on a weekly basis and a monthly basis. And for me, I feel like I've built a little bit of trust. The podcast is morphed over the past 3 years from long form to very kind of like bite-sized pockets of episodes these days. If I have a guest, slightly longer. But I had this pitch, and this pitch was from a guy who I ended up finding on LinkedIn, who ran like an accountancy firm, but his accountancy firm wasn't traditional accountancy. It was something quite nuanced in accountancy that he basically did. And he wanted to come on the podcast to talk about his new trading algorithm. Okay, an accountant or someone who online has an accountancy agency, and that's all he posts about on LinkedIn. He wanted to come on and talk about his new trading algorithm and how he donated $1.5 million or something like that, even though he's English, to some charity in America. And I'm like, okay, if you're English, why have you donated $1.5 million to a charity in America? Why have you not donated it to a charity in the UK? All this bluster about being a multi-millionaire and a multi-million-dollar business. I found this business. I went on Company's House and looked at his turnover, and I'm like, there's no way you are everything you're professing this person to be, right? The agency. So I emailed back and I said, listen, there is nothing that you provided me that I've been able to verify. There was silence for about 3 weeks. Then on Wednesday this week, I got another email, and the email read something like, "I've just picked up your response to a potential guest who was misrepresented. I have rejigged I've rejigged his profile so it better represents what he does." I then proceed to read the re-representation of what this guy supposedly does, and it's pretty much exactly the same thing. So I went back and I responded and I said, so you acknowledge that you misrepresented someone the first time round, and you're sending me another email to misrepresent him again, but just in a better light, having admitted it. It's crazy. It's crazy how many wheeler and dealers there are out here. People who are, again, forex trading are some very they are probably the most common skill sets that there are potential scams for. And for me, I'm never going to let a forex trader, without any kind of proper industry knowledge or qualifications that I can verify, onto my podcast. In the 3 years, I've had one person on who works in the forex space, and I had him on because what he does, he just rips the shreds out of like all of these wannabe traders who profess to be professionals and have no idea what they're doing. He picks apart their strategies and says, it's wrong, and this is why it's wrong. And they're selling you this, and this lot size that they say they're trading, this profit that they said they've made this today is completely bonkers. You look at the lot sizes, how much capital they must have. Does this guy look like he's got? And I've had him on the podcast. He's the only one in 3 years. And so when you think about passive income, please be careful, because there are lots of them out there that are just trying to get to people. And it's very clever, because what they end up doing is they use psychology against you. They use FOMO. They use, terms like passive income. You don't have to do much for it. You can trade 2 hours a day and you'll get money coming in, and you can live the lifestyle of your dreams. You can buy that Lamborghini, wear that Rolex, all this nonsense. There are lots of them out there that are just trying to get their stuff in front of people who will just lap it up and end up becoming victims. And for me personally, I didn't build my brand and spend the last 3 years building my brand to let someone like that on my platform. And it was crazy. And this is a red flag for me all the time. In the original email, he goes, "This person will be a great guest for you because number one, it will be educational and informative for your audience, but it could also earn you tens of thousands of pounds in referrals." And I'm like, I've never signed up to anything just for the sake of referrals. If I had started that out in 2021, I would have joined Cash FX because they were offering me tons of money to be on the channel, for me to be one of those people that was passing them through an affiliate link, people to go into their little Ponzi scheme. I ended up making videos to expose them and got a load of backlash out of it. So please, the moral of the story there is be careful. Be careful, particularly when it comes to this whole idea of passive income and the people that are going to be, spewing all of this nonsense. A lot of the time, it is just that. It's nonsense. I'm just trying to find where I am. Bear me 1 second. All right, here we go. Food George is asking, what do I think about shared ownership scheme of a house? Is it a good idea to get involved? I'm going to have something on shared ownership coming out soon. Sorry, guys. Coming out soon. I think shared ownership, because of the way the marketplace is right now when it comes to interest rates and property prices, shared ownership should be something that people don't dismiss. You should at least look at it as a potential option and include it, and then weigh up what the pros and the cons are. With shared ownership, the biggest, I guess, con, or at least the thing that I hear people complain about the most, is how difficult it can be to staircase. So obviously with shared ownership, what you're doing is you're buying a proportion of the property, then you're paying rent on the remaining, and you have the ability to buy more of the stake in the property as you go along. People have said that is extremely difficult to do. It's at least notorious a process to navigate, because you've got to deal with the person who owns the other part of the house that you're renting from, and then issues with valuations and so on and so forth. So I think it can be a good idea. I think it should be included in the options, particularly now with interest rates being so high, and the fact that we're hearing that interest rates are going to be higher for much, much longer. I think it will be a lot more popular. I did a little bit of press work for one of the help to buy shared ownership providers about a month or so ago. And they were talking about some of the research, saying, they polled a good number of people, and the amount of people who had lost hope in ever saving for a deposit for a property, the numbers were absolutely crazy. I can't remember what they are off the top of my head. And when you look at it in that regard, if you need to get a 10% deposit on a house that is going to cost you £300,000, that's £30,000. For a lot of people, that's a big, big, big amount of money. Well, if you're only buying, 50% of that property, all of a sudden, you only need £15,000, so it halves it immediately. And that's one of the big selling points of shared ownership. It can help you get on the property ladder a little bit earlier, participating a little bit earlier. And it means that if you do get somewhere where actually property prices do go up, you get that property appreciation, you can sell, take your equity, and that potentially gives you a deposit for something that you go and get for a full 100% mortgage, well, 90% loan to value mortgage under normal terms. So I think it is something that people should still consider for sure as part of the options that are out there. Maybe a second income would be more appropriate. A second income. So if you've got a second income, you have to do self-assessment, mate. You would have to do self-assessment, and you'll need to make sure that you're reporting how much you're earning under that secondary income, right? Because you've got to pay tax on it. So for that, you'll need an accountant, or you can do it yourself. You can do the self-assessment forms on your own. But in my experience, they have been that it's horrible. I don't like it. The forms are confusing. They're not straightforward. You could forget something that means that you end up paying more tax. Whereas if you just get an accountant, I get an accountant who does mine every single year. They know all the rules. He tells me, right, this is it. He asks me if there's any deductibles, so any expenses that I've incurred that they can use to offset, and he does it all for me. But if you've got a second income, self-assessment will probably be the one that you have to do. So an accountant, and again, speaking to HMRC, they'll walk you through the whole thing and give you the resources that you need. I think you're correct here. Extra income, secondary income, um, is a much better than passive income. Passive implies that there is no work that needs to go into you earning that money, which I think is only true if you've got money in the investment markets, and maybe property if you've got management fully dealing with it. Other than that, you're working in some way, shape, or form. Okay, so £300 into a SIP monthly. Okay, 300 quid is a lot, mate. You think it's not, but it is actually a pretty decent amount. It's a pretty decent amount. How much are you paying into your ISA? Let me know. Um, okay, so you're 45. So you've got 10 years to go. So before you can actually access that money within your SIP. So let's just say, one second. Let me see if I can find this here. One second. And obviously, you're going to have SIP fees here. So I can't, and I don't know what your SIP fees are. Um, so I can't give you accurate things here. Um, and I don't know how much you have in your SIP either. So I'm just going to make some numbers up here, okay? So let's just say you've already got 50 grand in your SIP already, and I'm just going to assume that I'm going to be conservative and say that you've got a 5% return every single year on that. You've got 10 years to go because you're 45. You've got 10 years before you can actually access that money. If you're doing £300 a month, because it's not so much about the amount that you're actually paying in, it's about the actual value of the SIP when you get to 55. Because when you get to 55, the bigger the value, the bigger your 25% tax-free cash is going to be that you can access tax-free at 55. So you're not just looking at the monetary amount that you're actually paying in, you're looking at the value, just not just from a income pot point of view, cash capital available, and if you did choose to take your tax-free cash, what that would be as well. So let's have a look at this. What is this telling me? One second. They've changed the way this looks now, and I don't like the way it looks. Okay, here we go. Right, so actually, let me just take this out. Actually, we'll make it a lot easier. No, just got to take 50 off this. So potentially, if you had 50 grand in there right now, and you had a 5% return, which is just being conservative, by the way. I don't know what your return on that would have been or what you expect to have, and you've got 10 years on there. It's £300 a month. You know, including your £50,000 as your initial investment, your potential return on this, and this doesn't account for your charges, it's about 42 grand, 43 grand, roughly, just under £43,000. Okay, 5% annual growth on average. So that's potentially what you reduce. Now let's just say you went from, let me just write this number down. So it's 42,935. Let's just say you reduced it, and you reduced it by 100 quid. And I know that you're not going to do that entirely for the next 10 years. So again, if we were working together one-on-one, we'd be able to extrapolate this a little bit more, but this is just throwing numbers out. The potential detriment to you is, if you reduce it by 100 quid, it's going to mean that your interest is going to be about £39,000. So actually, £100 a month roughly means that you lose about 4 grand, roughly. Okay. But your entire pension pot was 142,000. It would now be 113,000. So actually, when you consider that you might have had 50 grand in there already, you're going to lose around about 29 grand, roughly, in there. And these are just rough numbers, by the way. So it's hard to say, but I still think because you've got that long term 55, 10 years journey, I think you'll still be better off with the ISA. But again, it's worthwhile running the numbers to see what that might look like for you. But for me, the pension for sure, you'll get better rewards, more bang for your buck if you keep it in the SIP and don't take it from the ISA. Personally, that's what I think. Yeah, and you're just saying here you want to start saving for retirement. So again, if your priority is saving for retirement, mate, then yeah, I think the SIP, because you've got 10 years to go, mate. Time is of the essence, man. It really, really is. Um, and the fact that you'll be able to take, your commencement, your tax free cash, that's a huge thing. I mean, on 142 grand, what's that? 25%. £142,000 times 25%. You've got £35,500 roughly. You'll be able to take as a tax-free lump sum. I know people who I've worked with when I was advising who would take that kind of money, put it down as a deposit on a property. They'll put a tenant in that property, and then they will benefit from rental increase, the profit from the rentals. Slightly less attractive now with Section 42 or 24, whatever it's called now, where you can't, you've got to pay tax even on the mortgage repayments themselves. So it's not as attractive anymore. But I know that people use it because it gives them more choice, flexibility to be able to do it that way. But the thing to remember is if you did take £35,500, what you have left over is what potentially funds your retirement. So sometimes taking that 25% tax-free cash in one go isn't the right thing to do. But it really, all of this is predicated on what you already have in place and your circumstances right now. So yeah. Welcome, mate. Welcome, Bernard. Thanks for being here. Appreciate you, dude. Question. A few months ago, you introduced an app or platform that helps making overpayments. Can you help? So that it's called Sprive. So SPRIVE. So we had Janesh on Sprive. Yeah, really, really good app, mate. Really, really good app. Question here. Hi, Pete. Recently heard about salary exchange for pension contributions. Can you guide on how this works? Is there a fixed amount or maximum or minimum contribution for an organization / individual? Do you mean salary sacrifice? You're referring to salary sacrifice. Okay. So salary sacrifice is where basically you sacrifice receiving some of the salary to go into your pension. So under the normal rules for pensions right now, under auto enrollment, your employer's got to pay in 5, you got to pay in 3. So if you salary sacrifice, let's just say a lot of people would do it to sacrifice their bonus, right? So if they've got a yearly bonus and they know it's 20 grand, and people would typically do this at the top of the pay brackets, right? When they're entering into, paying additional rate tax, right? People may sacrifice their bonuses to reduce their tax bracket and therefore save money on tax and also have that money go into a pension for the future. So there are no minimums. For you to be enrolled in your workplace pension, they're already meeting the 5. Both you and your employer will be meeting the 5 and the 3 obligation. So how much you choose the salary sacrifice is completely down to you. So again, you're probably looking at this from a personal taxation point of view. What you probably want to know is, right, at what point do you breach the threshold if that's what you're trying to manage? Some people will salary sacrifice as well because over a certain salary threshold, they might lose benefits to certain things. I don't know, child benefits, things like that. So they might use salary sacrifice for that. But yeah, that's just a little overview on there. It can be quite a complex. And what I would suggest to you do is, if it's being presented to you or given to you as an option at work, speak to your guys in the HR team. They should be able to give you a little bit more information, or at least point you in the direction of your pensions administrator, who can actually give you a bit more information as well. But yeah, salary sacrifice is a very, very good tool that people often use to manage their tax positions and get some extra money into their pensions for future income purposes as well. So yeah. All right. What's the name of the podcast? The podcast is called the Conversation of Money podcast. So typically comes out every Monday, 6 a.m. There won't be an episode tomorrow morning. I've been out all week this week. And I've just been really, really swamped today. My week next week is crazy that I'm going to Monaco for work the week after. So what I'm going to be doing this week is literally I'm going to be out and about for most of the day, most of the week this week. And then when I get back over the weekend, I'll be recording the podcast ready for the following Monday. So there won't be a podcast episode tomorrow, but there will be one next Monday. But yeah, typically every Monday, 6 a.m., it goes out on Spotify, all of the good podcast outlets. Then it's available here on the channel at 12 p.m. every Monday as well. But it's, the Conversation of Money podcast is what it's called. I just say, for some reason, whenever they pitch living a lavish lifestyle through passive income, that is the first red flag. Yes, it should be, mate. It should be. You know what? I think that tactic will start to not work anymore. I think people are very, very aware of it now. There have been so many scams, especially when it comes, even in the crypto space. There have been, Bankman Fried, he's got what, 112, 119 years. I mean, imagine hearing that verdict. But after the damage he's caused and the billions that he's lost, people, I mean, what do you expect? You know, and they're going to use him as the example. They're going to throw and he's the architect of his own thing, really, because he actually tried to bribe Democrats and Republicans. That was intentional. Like, it has to be intentional to do what you've done. So yeah, they're going to throw the rule book at him. But that, for me, is like, my eyes glaze over when I hear some of this stuff, because people aren't really falling for it anymore. But it used to infuriate me so much. Understood. My idea is to offer professional service for my years of tech expertise. Okay, I thought of Quick, has never crossed my mind, but thanks for the warning, mate. If you got tech expertise, you should do really, really well. First thing you need to do, my friend, get on LinkedIn immediately. LinkedIn is a really, really good place, but especially if you've got tech expertise, mate. LinkedIn is the place where you want to be for just like networking and stuff. Would you avoid investing in the S&P 500? As everyone is saying that the market is going to crash and dollars is effectively going to be destroyed. I still have money in the S&P, mate. Newsflash, and I'm not moving it anytime soon. It's down. I think. What am I down? Let me just have a look. I was going to do a review of this, but there's certain things that I just don't show on YouTube, and maybe I should. But I mean, I do show it sporadically. But the last time I checked, it was down like 1%. I mean, if you think about it, the S&P 500 has actually been quite resilient, given everything that's happened so far this year. It's been very, very resilient. It's definitely benefited from the whole AI boom, for sure. And even though inflation has been really, really, really rampant, even in the States, the S&P 500 has fared well compared to other markets that are out there. And I can't access this thing now because I've got two-factor authentication. It's going to come through on my phone, and I'm using my phone as my webcam. But I think I'm not moving my money from the S&P at the moment. You got to think about what the S&P is. The S&P 500 is the top 500 companies in the world. So they're all large cap companies, all very, very profitable. And yes, during recessionary periods or inflationary periods or fears of recessions, and there are problems around the corner, don't get me wrong. The states aren't out of the woods when it comes to inflation just yet. They've got a general election, or they've got their elections coming up soon. There's what's going on with Israel and Gaza. If that escalates even further, then that's going to be turmoil for everyone. But still, those are the 500 companies that basically run the world in the sense that their services and products are needed by everyone on the planet. So where else do you put money if not those companies? And so if the answer is, well, that's the only place to go, there is your answer right there. In terms of markets are going to crash, there is always the risk that the markets are going to crash. That's been true forever and a day for the past 50 years. The markets are going to crash. And they do crash. They will crash. But here is where we start getting into the fundamentals of investing, right? The fundamentals of investing, why you invest, understanding risk, diversification, understanding how the investment markets actually work. Because the markets are going to crash doesn't mean don't buy. Many people will argue that when the markets are on a downturn, that's exactly when you should buy. Because look, let's put it this way. If you think about business principles, yeah, what's the theory behind business? You buy something. If you have to buy a product to resell, you buy something at a lower price and you sell it for profit, right? That's the whole idea of business, fundamentally. My business, I coach, I deliver workshops, speeches, talks for corporates, I deliver programs, right? So I have a particular cost to deliver those things. I sell that service to a company at a higher price, so I have profit in between, right? So low price, sell at a high price. That's fundamentally business. In investing, it's exactly the same thing. But this is what happens in investing, which is, again, behavioral psychology. Everyone goes crazy when things are going up and buys at the top. So they buy when the prices are really, really high. And then because they panic, they sell when the prices have come down and they've lost money. It's just completely it's backwards. It's not the way we should be doing things. And so understanding the fundamentals around investing is really, really important. I don't talk about my course anywhere near as much as I should, but I talk about the basics. I talk about how investments are built, why you invest, understanding risk, the timeline theory, because that's very, very important in terms of the risk that you're willing and able to take. Those two things are two different concepts. No other YouTuber talks about this kind of stuff because they don't understand it. They don't have the qualifications that I have. So my course goes through all of that stuff. So in terms of the market crashing, yeah, it could crash tomorrow. I'm still going to keep my money in there. I'll probably throw more money in because guess what? If I throw more money in, I'm going to pick up shares in all of these 500 companies less than I would have got them 2 weeks ago. And as they rebound, in which they will rebound, that's going to be the basis for me to earn a little bit more money. Dollar. The dollar is effectively going to be destroyed. Yes, but not tomorrow. Probably not in the next decade or so. I don't think the dollar has definitely lost supremacy for sure, for sure. There's no way of getting around that. If you think about the fact that the Fed, and I did a video on this last week. If you think about the fact that the Fed is borrowing 776 billion dollars just October to December to keep afloat. $767 billion in debt, and they're going to borrow another 810 billion dollars in Q1 of 2024. You have to ask all kinds of questions as to whether or not this America is even viable. If this was personal finance, you would be fucked, completely and utterly bankrupt. But this is a country. And the reason why they're able to continue on this cycle is because the dollar is still the world's reserve currency. The US and the US economy is still the largest economy on the planet. They have challenges from the likes of BRICS, so Brazil, Russia, India, China. And people will say, oh, too far behind. Listen, go have a look at the growth curve of the Indian economy over the past 10 years and tell me they're not going to be serious contenders in the next 10. It is widely assumed that the Americans and the UK and the US economy will no longer be the largest economy in the world in the next 5 years, overtaken by China. BRICS, the BRICS nations, those Torag countries, those ragtag group of countries that everyone was laughing at, 5-6 years ago, for the first time this year, contributed more to global GDP, which is all of the money created across all of the economies globally. They contributed more to that number as a group. So Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa is also the other one in there. Those countries contribute more to global output than the G7. And the G7 includes the US, the UK, France, Germany. Germany is the largest economy in Europe. Just think about that for a moment. So yes, there are challenges to the dollar, but one thing I can guarantee you right now, the Americans are not going to lie down and just allow things to happen. What do you think? Why do you think all this stuff is happening in Israel right now? With how many billion barrels of oil have they just found? Was found and reported probably about 6 months ago off the coast of Gaza. Why is the US so quiet on human rights now, given the fact that there is so much turmoil between Russia and China And that strategic alliance is a huge threat to the Americans. You can listen to any other politicians doing their electoral rounds right now. Their talking points: China, Russia, big threat. And given the fact that we've had this energy crisis last year, to then find a huge reserve of oil off the coast of Gaza, with Israel being closely aligned to the Western world, they're going to become the new supplier to Europe and America. And behind the scenes, oil drilling, all exploratory companies are being awarded contracts to drill off the coast of Gaza. Look, it's all in the news, by the way. It's all in the news. And I don't mean to get sidetracked, but you need to think about what's happening globally, because whilst it might be politics, all of this will have an impact on investment markets. All of this will have an impact on personal finances. All of this will have an impact on economies, which impact our personal finances. So in a really messed up way, it is interconnected. And a lot of the time, we don't necessarily pay attention to what's being said and what's happening behind the scenes. And I've not really said much about what's going on out over there. It's horrible, but there's a reason for it all. Nothing happens without reason. Nothing happens without reason. Anyway, there we go. I'm just looking at the time. We're an hour and 10 in. Let's have a look at a little scroll through these. I don't think there's that many questions left in here. Bonus is asking, do I provide advice on the salary sacrifice asking as a contractor with variance in contract terms? I don't advise anymore, mate. I do have my qualifications as a financial advisor, but I don't advise anymore. So I can't help in that regard. But I do know someone who can advise you if you're looking for advice specifically. So message me on Instagram and I can put you through someone like Terry or Ashley, for example. They're very, very good. And I've worked with them in the past. They're both really good friends of mine, and I'll trust them to do a good job for you. So they can definitely advise for sure. What would be your advice to a late starter who has come to the UK in their late 40s and wants to begin investing and saving? Look, first and foremost, just get going. So look, I'll give you the short run of it. Make sure first and foremost that you understand and you're comfortable with your budget. You don't want to be investing money that you're going to need. So the only amount you should be investing should be what you can afford to lose. So if you've picked up my book, literally that is the blueprint for it right there. Starting with the B, budget, right? Make sure you've got your essentials and your non-essentials covered. The other part, which I talk about, that is money that you can invest, but not before you think about giving yourself an emergency fund. So you need to think about all of your essentials bills, so all the things you have to pay for. Add up all of that money, times it by 3, by 6, by 9, or just come up with a number that you feel you would be comfortable with having in the bank separate. So if anything goes wrong, you've got that money to back you up. Do that first. Then you can think about investing. So to start investing, maybe take my course. It's reasonably priced. I think it's 99 quid or whatever it is. That will go through the breakdown of how investments are built, timeline, risk, all of that good stuff. But ultimately, you can literally just start with £1. And it's all about provider selection. So if you don't want to do it yourself, you don't want to be, you don't know what to choose, you're not sure that you understand the S&P 500, clearly enough, then there's different providers. You can use Moneybox, you can use Money Farm, you could use what's another one, Plum. You could use any of those. You could use someone like Vanguard, for example. There's tons. You could use eToro. You could use Hargreaves Lansdown. It's all going to be about provider selection. But the first thing you need to do, make sure you have the budget down so you can cover your essentials, your non-essentials, you invest whatever's left over, and give yourself room with an emergency fund so you don't have to dip into that money that you're investing, especially as things are very, very volatile right now. And I cannot overstate that. It's really, 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 really important. But that would be the run of what I would suggest that you do. I'm 30 and can't re-enter the market for about 5 years due to other commitments with mortgage payments. Will the same strategy apply in passive index investing for guys aged 30 to 40, or is more risk needed? Really, really good question. Okay, I don't know the circumstances around that you're talking about here, in terms of you not being able to re-enter the market in 5 years' time, due to other commitments with mortgage payments. So are you exiting? I mean, I'm guessing you're exiting altogether. So you're thinking about deposits, right? At 35 to 40, you're going to need to up your risk, because either way, if you're entering into the market again at 35, 40, the mortgage term is going to be the big challenge, right? So yeah, you could get a 20-year mortgage. You can go up to 60, 65 for sure, to 20, 25-year term. But it's all going to be about the affordability of the mortgage because of the age and interest rates, right? Interest rates are going to be a really, really big thing. And a lot of the lenders now in the mortgage space, if you're going past the age of 65, they want to know what you have in terms of pension provisions. They'll ask you, do you have sufficient pensions? And it might not be an issue at, say, 40, but as you start to get closer to 50, for example, and you might have half of the mortgage left, and you're looking to remortgage, then they're going to start really asking the question, because they want to ascertain, look, if you do go past 65, they want to know you've got pensions in place to be able to pay for the mortgage payment. So it's not impossible. I think you'll have to up the risk a little bit more, because then it's all about making sure that you've got a large enough deposit to reduce the term of your mortgage. Really, that's the name of the game at that point. So I think you'll need a little bit more, but that isn't to say you have to take huge more risk than you would have taken if you're in the position right now. So don't let it discourage you in any way, shape, or form. I think it's all about your circumstances at the time, but the priority should be, deposit wise, being able to have the largest deposit possible to be able to give you the best chance of being able to, number one, pay off the mortgage earlier and not exceed the point of repayment to which they're going to start asking you for pension provisions, or even get to the point where actually they'll rate you up and give you a really unattractive rate just because you're a little bit older, or God forbid they just say, actually, you know what, you can't get a mortgage on your terms because interest rates might still be high. We don't know what's going to happen at that point. So it really depends, mate. All right, okay, cool. Cheers, guys. Thank you so much for this. It's an hour and 14 minutes. Thank you so much for joining me. This is the first one I've done in like a month or so, I think. And it's amazing how much the time actually flies of not doing these. I've just been so busy. So I will obviously try and do another one of these. I'm thinking of maybe making these monthly. Things are going to change next year. I'm doing a lot of work at the moment in prep for next year. It's already November. It's mad. It's my birthday in a couple of weeks' time. It's just, I can't believe that the time has gone so quickly. It's pretty rad. So yeah, please don't forget, if you have stayed this far, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Our likes are at 51 at the moment. If we can get them up to 60, that will be absolutely amazing. But again, I thank you so much for spending the time with me this evening. Enjoy the rest of your week and whatever it is that you're doing. Catch you later on. Cheers.
Yeah, surprise, a little different than you used to. Yeah. Dropping these bars on YouTube, knowledge I introduce you. Yeah. We chasing this money like it's the prize, it's the voodoo. Fugazi, fugazi, it's just a lie we buying into. We need some cars on deck. Get the rollies, get the Moe, all the Mars on deck. We got the traders, got the picture with the Bentley in Dubai. Are you dripping in designer, looking fly? On the bombardier, sipping on the wine. Broke man, we broke. Where's the fun in being broke? Stocks and bonds get you yoked. That's what I'm teaching these folks. I see that smoke, see them choke. Getting coke. While I'm researching these stocks, buying coke. 20 months on the channel, million people taking note. I got a warrant for Buffet. I'm coming for his vote.